Well, the building engines is we've deployed throughout our portfolio. So what it's actually done is it's kind of created a cohesive factor with all the buildings. And as you know, in the industry, each building kind of is its own entity. You know, we organize our buildings in separate LLCs, so they're kind of like separate little companies everywhere. And the fact that, but we manage them, you know, as through one company, one management company, and now we have a device that pretty much shares all the information collectively across all our assets, and allows us to manage them more effectively, because it kind of gives more confidence to our senior managers to see how the buildings are operating on a day-to-day basis, whether it be through a work order system or whether it be a preventive maintenance system. And it just kind of gives our managers, I would say, better confidence to see how they are doing on a day-to-day basis. But through kind of the deployment and through kind of through the advantages that were apparent once it was starting to be put in place, more of a groundswell was being brought up, and then they actually now look at it as a real need to have. It's a product that allows them to communicate more efficiently with the customer. And we call our tenants clients. We have multi-tenanted office portfolio, and our tenants are clients, and this device allows them to treat them more like clients and in a more effective way. So right now it's perceived as a need to have. Well, the process that we put in place really to look at it is we're looking for a tool that would unite and streamline our systems and make it more effective. And looking for a communication tool that was easy to use from both the vendor side, us, because we're a service provider, as well as for our clients or tenants. It had to be mutual, because that's who you're communicating with. And then we looked at all the major brands. We were kind of first on the circuit, so a lot of this stuff was kind of being invented at the time. And we came down to building engines mainly because of its use, its easy use, and the fact that building engines has a department or a philosophy that helps us take advantage of everything it has to offer. And I think if you run your own companies and you buy software for your employees, if you go out and take a look at who actually takes advantage of the software, I would say, maybe you're using maybe 20–30% of the capabilities of the software. And I know I'm probably the least technologically advanced employee of our whole company. But when you have something easy to use, you end up using it. And that's why we really picked it. And then the follow-up relative to the service and the upgrades and basically the training programs and stuff made it something that, quite frankly, was maybe looked at as something threatening, and something that was, that a lot of our building managers and building engineers were afraid to use, actually kind of made it inviting, and they kind of want to use it. So if you get something that wants to be used, it gets used. Well, I think the way we value our assets, and we're not alone, I'm sure, but we heavily emphasize that the value of our assets are determined by the quality of the tenancy that's in the building. So everything we do at Ashforth is geared towards renewals and maintaining, obviously, the highest possible tenancy in our building. So with this tool, what it allowed us to do was to communicate effectively there, and it freed up. What it really did is it freed up our property managers from handling the mundane hot and cold calls, the water leaking faucets, and some of the managerial side of property management, some of those tasks, to actually focusing on the needs and the real needs of the tenants, or what I explained is our clients, our client base. And because the system allowed the information and the requests from a tenant to change a light bulb or a hot and cold call in a certain building to be handled seamlessly between project engineer and the task at hand, and servicing the client, and that allows our property manager, who's the senior person on the site, to actually look at the whole process and really communicate it at a much higher level with the tenant or the client. And that is, in our opinion, creates a better relationship and a more sticky relationship, as in they're going to renew. And again, we aim all our initiatives in our building is to renew the client, the tenant, and because that's where the value is.
And that's what allows. Do that?
And big time, because a building engineer can go in there and take a look at the history of how you're servicing the client. So it measures response time. It measures if it's a recurring repair. So if it's a constant hot and cold call in the same office, we then say, well, geez, this is the third time we've had that hot cold call. Maybe it's a problem with the unit. And so we're proactively managing these things rather than, reactionary. So and then what happens, it allows us to have a discussion at a higher level with our clients, rather than just you were late on fixing this, you didn't get me the light bulb, you didn't do this. It's more, oh, you've done this, you've done it, and it was a recurring problem, and you fixed it, and you took another approach at it. Mm-hmm. And that's all because not only do you get good transfer of communication between client and our building engineers and our property managers, but you get historical data, which then you can actually measure how you're doing. So we can actually confidently go into a meeting and say, we'll go to a client once a month and sit down and say, how are we doing? And we have the history of all the calls, whether visitor access, whether they've had any issues in the parking garage, whether they've had any type of hot and cold issues or maintenance calls or any type of work order issue. And we can go in there and say, look, our average response time is 2 hours mm-hmm. for a hot and cold call, which is good. The average response time for a new parking cart or visiting access is less than 30 minutes, okay, which is what you want it to be. But then there's some issues that, like a move or something, or some construction activity that actually takes a lot more time. And what happens is we start working right on those problems or requests, which takes most of the time, most of the thinking, and we're able to do more with less.